Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I call this meeting of the House Public Safety, Homeland Security Committee into order. We only have one bill for discussion purposes today. Senate Bill 101 by Senator Ginn. John Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Monroe from GeorgiaCarry.org. Georgia Carry supports Senate Bill 101, so I won't go into a lot of detail. I do have just a couple of comments on it. One, there has been some discussion on public housing, and just for the edification of the members, there was a time in not too long ago history that the Atlanta Housing Authority actually had a regulation prohibiting carrying guns in their properties, and one of our members who was a resident there brought it to our attention, and we contacted the Housing Authority and pointed out that that's probably not constitutional and that we would sue them if they wouldn't remove the ordinance or the regulation, and they did. So I'm not aware of other housing authorities in Georgia that have that, but it has happened in Georgia to some extent. On the question of reciprocity, I can fill in a couple of numbers. Approximately 26 states currently recognize Georgia licenses. And the current Georgia law is that Georgia will recognize any other state's license that recognizes Georgia, so we recognize those same other states. The rest of the states are about half divided between not having any recognition or reciprocity with anybody. That would be states like California and New York. They just don't recognize permits from anywhere else. And then about half of the other states have some reciprocity, but because of their particular reciprocity law, have not recognized Georgia's permits. And I don't think that would change based on the bill. And finally, on the topic of the database, again, we support that provision. But one thing I'd point out or make an observation, perhaps ask a question, is under the current Georgia law, we've gone from a local issuance of the physical license from the probate judge to a statewide vendor that is producing all of the licenses. And we've actually had some concern about that at Georgia Carry. We think maybe that is creating a de facto database in the vendor because that vendor is producing all of the licenses. So I'm not sure how this bill would change that. We'd like to see some kind of mechanism where the vendor is not permitted to maintain a database. In other words, after it creates the physical license and sends it back to the probate judge, that the information is destroyed at the vendor so that the vendor can't use it to create a database, which I think is what the spirit of the bill is. That's all the comments I have. I'd be happy to answer your questions if there are.
I want to thank the Georgia Carry folks for speaking in favor of this bill that I think obviously is an NRA bill. Mr. White,
that would be accurate.
I need to ask a question. Did NRA and did y'all like 512?
Yes. We support. We support.
Well, I noticed that y'all were notably absent during all the hours of testimony, but thank you. And it warms my heart to know that we have all of the Second Amendment groups, with maybe some of the outcast groups, that are all in favor of the process. And I appreciate you being here today.
We decided to split it up this year. They chose path, and we.
Senator, again, I'm going to recommend that you meet with Representative Atwood. He is our legal scholar, to maybe work out some language on that deals with the probate judge language, so that when this committee meets to pass this bill forward. And I did ask you, you like this 512 too, don't you,
I'm with
Senator?
you, Coach. You are my state rep.
You are one of my 3 senators in the bane of my life.
Yeah, but you are my state rep.
That's a good bill, and thank you. And if there's no other comments, this meeting is over.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.